So today, we're reviewing Doughbird. Back there. That's the one that's on 7th Street here in Phoenix. A few years ago, before I retired, the very first Doughbird opened up near my office, which is on the east side of Phoenix, in the Arcadia district. And I was very excited that they would open, because I'm always excited when a pizza place opens. That's just a fact of life. But I got one look at their menu, and I concluded that they were far too pretentious for me to ever eat, which is a shame, because then that's one less pizza place. But they have expanded. I believe they have adapted their menu over the time. And so, now that there is one relatively near to me, we have come to see what all the excitement is about, because a lot of people really like it. Let's find out. So in editing this review, I noticed that my comments about Doughbird might have been confusing out of context. So I edited it rather heavily, so that I could bring those thoughts to context here. Everyone has their biases, and like it or not, they do color one's perceptions, and therefore their opinions and their actions. I can't eliminate mine entirely, but what I can do is, when I identify them, I can disclose them. I have a bias against pretentious restaurants. This extends to both truly upscale restaurants and smaller corporate establishments that try to appeal to a wannabe upscale clientele. For example, basically any place that incorporates wine bar into the branding. And when it comes to pizza places, I'm also not a fan of the California Wolfgang Puck-inspired pizzas with weird-ass toppings just for the sake of having weird-ass toppings to appeal to a certain crowd who are more concerned with novelty than, say, taste. Which brings us to Doughbird, a restaurant which, upon their opening, featured such headlining pizzas as Brussels sprouts, crispy pastrami, barbecue beef, Asian chicken, spiral ham, and bacon and truffled eggs. To be strictly fair to them, they did list a pepperoni and burrata pizza. But to me, burrata is a bit like a ball of flavorless cheese snot. I'm not going to lie, they opened in 2017. They were right by my office. I could have easily gone there for lunch, but so prejudicially disinclined was I towards them, it's not until 8 years later that I'm finally willing to set foot inside their restaurant. I'll tell you what changed in a minute, but let's establish who Doughbird is first. In Arizona, we have a corporation called Fox Concept Restaurants. As far as I can tell, their business model is to develop quirky concept restaurants that will appeal to that aforementioned crowd. They build one location and see how it goes. Following that single restaurant phase, they will either close or open more, or they'll sell the brand to another company. This is quite literally a company that throws stuff against the wall to see what sticks. So what changed? What got me in the door to Doughbird? You need to understand how much mindshare Doughbird had with me. None. After viewing their original menu, I dismissed them as being not worth the effort and more or less forgot about them. More so after I stopped working in the area, and I didn't go by there every day. But the other day I was exiting Spanato's Pizza, I looked across the street, and there was a new location of Doughbird. Honestly, I was surprised they were still in business, let alone expanding. Incredulous that they were still operating with such a revolting menu. I checked their website and learned that they had revamped that menu. First pizza at the top of the menu, pepperoni and fresh mozzarella. They'd acknowledged their mistakes and moved on from their shaky beginnings, and I decided to set aside my prejudices and give them a chance. They've grown to 5 locations in 3 states. The location I reviewed was on 7th Street in Phoenix, just north of Missouri. It was just after 11 a.m. on Friday, January 31st, 2025. Inside is rather like you might expect. Wide open spaces with about 20 tables surrounding a large wine bar that seats perhaps 30. There were also 13 to 15 tables on the outside patio, which appears to be both heated and misted. The restaurant is in a shared complex with other restaurants. It has a large parking lot and bike racks. The waitstaff were efficient and very attentive. Doughbird has 2 kinds of pizza, hand-stretched and Detroit style. Each type only has one size, which is not listed on the menu. Both pizzas are priced the same. Pepperoni pizza is $21. The hand-stretched, which I had measured, 31 centimeters in diameter, making it quite a bit larger than the 2 previous pizzas I've reviewed, and at the upper limits of what one person might reasonably eat in a sitting. This pizza could certainly be split between 2 people. So, that works out to 755 square centimeters of area, or at that price, 2.8 cents per centimeter. That puts it close to the top of the pack so far on cost per unit, which did actually surprise me. It felt like it was a very expensive pizza. The pizza had a very nice presentation and looked well cooked with a nice brown to the crust. The pepperoni was small and of the type that curls up into cups when cooked. Some, but not most of them, had puddles of grease in them. There was also a large round spots of lighter colored cheese. Presumably this is why the pizza is specifically called pepperoni and fresh mozzarella on the menu. Slices of fresh mozzarella are included above and beyond the basic pizza cheese used underneath the pizza. This pizza looked very promising. It didn't entirely live up to that promise. Let's start with the crust. This is just a gorgeous crust. It's the right color, it's got about the right thickness, it's got some airy pockets, and it's about the right balance between stiff and droopy. For all its visual appeal, it was dry, and it just didn't bring the flavor. By the time I reached the outer edge, I wasn't particularly interested in eating the pizza bones. The pepperoni, as mentioned, was the small curling pepperoni. Some people love this. Some people hate this. I'm fine with it. As was in this case, many of them had just about the right amount of crispiness to bring out the maximum pepperoni flavor without being burnt. That's a trick, getting that balance. As is typical of this type of pepperoni, some were awash in grease. I thought it odd, though, that not all of them were. I'm not sure how they managed that. It's usually all or nothing. The cheese was, let's say, interesting. There were the clear slices of fresh mozzarella on top. And like all fresh mozzarellas, it's pretty bland. It was fine. It was fine. But the base layer of cheese, that was what was interesting. My first impression was that it was some kind of cheese blend. That's fine. I'm not such a purist that I insist on only mozzarella as a blend of cheeses, can bring a nice flavor profile to a pizza. At first, this wasn't a problem, but as the pizza cooled, I found that the cheese became harsh and, frankly, unpleasant. Sufficiently so that I stopped with 2 pieces of pizza left and I took them home, thinking that reheating them might reverse the process. The real star of this pizza was the sauce. I can't say that I've had a better sauce. It was flavorful and it was balanced, just on the tart side. I wish I could recreate this sauce in my own kitchen, because I would be one step of the way towards making a really great pizza at home. As an aside, my son took those two pieces of pizza that I brought home, and he reheated them later that same day. I didn't tell him what I thought of the pizza, but after he ate the pizzas, he rendered his own judgment. He said, and I quote, "The cheese tastes weird, but the sauce is really good." So, at least he and I are on the same page. Doughbird's other style of pizza is Detroit style, and there aren't many Detroit style pizza places in the area, and pictures on Yelp make it look like it might lean heavily into the sauce, which, considering my liking, might be a good thing. I will go back and try it on another day. I note from their website that not all their locations have the Detroit style. But we're not talking about the Detroit style today. We are talking about their hand stretch, which I am going to rate a B, but it is a marginal B. It is just barely a B. But if you eat the pizza fast and you don't let it cool down, it's at its best. That's it for this review. And I hope between now and our next one, you get a chance to get out and have a great slice of pizza.